Hey, Mark.
Yeah, Captain Sama.
Guess what?
What's happening?
We don't have an episode this month.
What?
Well, life happens. So I figured we'd just do like a quick Q&A with each other so we could, have something to get out. So wouldn't, this don't necessarily count as a chronological episode? What do you think?
Why the hell not? It's not like we're not doing, we're doing anything important.
I am doing some very important drinking.
You know what? That's good enough for me.
Cheers.
Kampai.
And skull as the Norse would have it. So, all right, let's get started. Welcome to the Little Old People Podcast.
Yeah, we are in the place to be.
So, Mark, you and I have been friends for over 15 years, if you could actually believe that, which is frankly frightening. But I can't help but think about how our fellow fan enthusiasts may not know us so well.
Indeed, that is correct. Yes.
So, what do you think they might want to know about us?
Wrong answers only?
No, this is serious. We are podcasters after all. This is serious business.
Yeah, okay.
No, really. We introduce ourselves every episode, but what does all that mean? Inquiring minds want to know. Wait a minute, did I just date myself? Is that even still a thing?
1, no, it is not still a thing. 2, yes, you did date yourself. 3, you are not the only one who is dated.
Damn it, I'm old.
It's in the title. Deal with it, oldie.
Are you my grandson? Where am I? Can you take me home?
I will require a map, a time machine, something that flies, and an old man vaguely reminiscent of Doc Brown in order to begin to explain what is wrong with this line of questioning.
All righty then, moving on.
We have been doing this podcast for some time now, which still blows my freaking mind too.
I know, right?
We don't really talk about ourselves all that much, though we have shared some, personal experiences in the reviews of things here and there. But we believe you, the listener, may want to know more about the two old people who run this biz.
This is a business? Are you getting paid? Because I'm not.
Moving right along, the goal of this episode
Okay, then.
is to add some dimension to the voices that you may be assured we aren't disembodied voices inside a test facility leading you to your doom, or something like that. Whatever.
Thanks, Obama. Now we have to come up with a new plan.
Oops.
Sure. Let's get some old school creepy here. ASL
39 MNJ. Yeah, that's a great way to start this. Well, you've lived all over the country, right? What city did you live in the longest, and how did you like it?
Well, I have lived all over the country. The place where I've lived the longest technically wasn't a city. It was Bridgeton, New Jersey, which is at best a town. I was there for 10 years, and that's actually where we met. Well, we met at college, like 30 miles away, but, it's New Jersey, so same diff.
Further than that, but yes, it was still a rather amusing conversation.
It really was.
It was like, hey, where are you from? I'm from South Jersey. Oh, yeah, me too. Where? Oh, you wouldn't know where it is. Oh, try me. Oh, I'm from Bridgeton. Well, I'm from Vineland. That's the next town over.
Yeah, exactly.
Meanwhile, we're standing in Trenton, 70 miles away. That, my dear friends, is a fated meeting.
It was indeed. Yes, and if I recall correctly, you were carrying a bag, or you had on a Dragon Ball Z t-shirt or something to that effect, and then I dragged you into the club, and that was pretty much the beginning and the end of that.
If I remember correctly, it was the first movie night that you had put together as the president of the anime club. And I saw you from a distance wearing a blue wig. A black girl with a blue wig, by the way, that didn't end up on a stripper pole.
No. Although I will admit, winning the drag show by doing a lap dance, probably the height of my career at this point.
Hey, don't brag, because you weren't the only winner. I was a fabulous bitch.
Yes, you were. I didn't even recognize you when I walked in the door, so I was like,
I was so pretty that night.
Oh, yeah, you were. So, you have your own YouTube channel, and you document cons. Which ones are the most fun, and why do you do it?
Well, my channel, At Home with a Geek, links in the descriptions and whatnot, if you ever want to check out the dumb stuff that I talk about. I have gone to conventions for years, and for a long time, my yearly vacation was going to Otakon, which at the time was in Baltimore. Now, they started out in Virginia Beach and made their way to, Baltimore, Maryland. And for the last few years have been in Washington, D.C. And I wanted to go. Oh, I wanted to go for the last couple of years. And life, for some reason, hates me. But that's neither here nor there. Life definitely kicked me in the ass, and I had to choose between fandom and food. So when I was able to go to a convention again, I went to Anime Next 2019, and I decided that I was going to Atlantic City and documenting as much of it as I possibly could.
Nice.
Because it was my triumphant return to anime conventions, I had to dress up. I had to cosplay. And I was the most important nerd on the face of the earth to me. I went in as Stephen Q. Urkel, also known as Black Nerd Prime. It is an homage to my nerdy heritage. And it's been there ever since. I have no reason not to. One of the things, though, I have to say about this, though, when I went to Anime Next 2019, I had gone there specifically because I had heard about it. It was close by, and it wasn't that expensive, so my broke ass could still go. But my favorite one in the same city, not a month after that, was J1Con. J1Con 2019 was the first one that I went to as a quote-unquote established YouTuber, because I was there with a couple other people that knew that I had a channel, and I did some interviews and things of that nature. I interviewed other YouTubers, like the guys from Unlockable Content, another New Jersey-based, further north than I am, but New Jersey-based YouTubers. I was also there with the guys from Art School Dropouts. Absolutely love them. I was in a couple of their short films. They are a lot of fun. Check them out on YouTube as well. They do a lot of action martial arts type films there. Yeah, I was a henchman and I died a lot. Nice. But I was hanging out with them at J1Con, and I had such a great time. And I met some amazing people in the dealers area that pretty much made their business out of fandom, and I loved every bit of it. And I did make some amazing connections with people in the community as well. For example, one of the people that I think was the most amazing that I personally met was a guy named Jason Richardson, who is the mind behind J1Con. I actually got to be in a short film with him.
Very cool.
The dude is awesome.
I'm severely jealous right now.
All I gotta say is picture a somewhat shorter version of Static Shock and then put him in a Spider-Man costume and you've got Jason.
Nice.
Pretty much the deal.
That's amazing.
The thing I loved the most, though, after that, I had the experience of seeing people at a convention that I had seen at another convention. Like, I went to another con at a later time and ran into people that I had seen at other cons that year. I was like, hey, wait a minute, I remember seeing you. And we're making conversation and talking and have a good time. It was networking for nerds the way it should be. It was fun, and it needs to be fun. That's how I love it, and that's what I'm always going to do.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And please let us offer up to any powers you believe in that Otakon will survive.
Very much so. It has been the lifeblood of those of us who came up with our noses in comics. We definitely need to continue to have it because that was our flagship.
Absolutely. I mean, just think of all the cons that we used to go to that don't exist anymore. Bath, gone. Only went there twice. Gone. Doesn't exist. Nobody knows what that is anymore. There's a few ones that I went to when I was at Lyco. Gone. College-based cons just gone. So please, let's pray Otakon stays.
Yes.
We need it.
Yes. Now, I am aware that you are a knitwit. How did you get interested in knitting?
Well, that's not such a nice story. I was suffering with some pretty severe depression as a teenager. And I came across some knitting books at the library, and I brought them home. I was like, well, what the hell? I had found knitting needles in my mother's sewing kit, and she helped me, get started. And I basically just taught myself how to knit, to keep my hands occupied so I wouldn't hurt myself. Because, like I said, my depression was quite severe, and it being the 90s, largely undiagnosed and ignored. So, that was... So I knitted so I didn't kill people, namely myself.
That's part of the reason I read comics. I understand.
Yeah, so now it's been close to 27 years. I've now transitioned it from I knit so I don't kill people to this is now my post-apocalyptic skill set. So, if the world ends, I will not get voted off the island. Because as long as I have sticks and string, I will never be naked, nor will anybody around me.
Nothing wrong with that.
And I've used it to make all sorts of useful and stupid things from, blankets and hats and sweaters and coats and socks and toys and book covers and bags, rugs, cozies. I mean, like anything you could need or want for a house or for yourself, I've pretty much knit it.
I remember you had crocheted a Spider-Man costume once.
Yes. Of a vague semblance of one, but yes, yeah.
It counts. It counts because it was awesome. It counts.
But for me, knitting also was kind of a gateway drug to other crafts because as well as knitting, I now weave, I do sewing, historical and contemporary. I make chainmail jewelry, I do beading, I do crochet, and a myriad of other things, including but not limited to writing fan fiction. So,
And thankfully you have the time to say the entire word.
I know, right?
Yes.
But yeah, over the years, my mental health has improved somewhat, and now I'm actually getting medical treatment for it. 30 years out of date, but it's okay.
Hey, I didn't start getting mine until a couple of years ago. Trust me, you are not in bad company.
No, apparently I am not. So, but yeah, I am doing better, so you don't have to worry about me. But yeah, looking back, learning that skill and having the time that I took to learn it did help me immensely, and it did keep me from doing something foolish.
Awesome.
So anyway, on a slightly less depressing note, let's raise the level of the room here. What's the most obscure thing that you get geeked out about?
On principle, I geek out about obscure things, period. There's plenty of stuff that's fairly mainstream that gets my blood pumping because let's be honest, MCU stuff is always wonderful. Speaking of, if you haven't seen WandaVision, watch that shit, you freaking slackers. It is awesome. Oh my God, it's awesome.
I know, but I'm waiting to get like a bunch of episodes. They're only 30 minutes long. I mean, I don't want to just watch one 30-minute thing and then wait 2 weeks until the next. No, I want like a bunch of them I can watch at once.
Okay, I can understand that. 2 things. 1, there are 6 episodes up now. And 2, my dear friend, they come out every week. So it's not as bad, but I get what you mean.
I watched the first 3. I'll get to the others, I promise.
And you need to, because they're awesome. If you'd like to hear me berate Captain Sama even more, please check out some of the other back podcast episodes we've had, because we do this a lot. Now, like I said, mainstream stuff still does work, and I love the fact that the things that I grew up with are now a lot easier to find, and it's great to be able to walk through them all and say, hey, look, there's some some stuff from an anime that I watched about 15 years ago. That's awesome. But when somebody starts talking about obscure 80s animation, now you have my attention. The random reference to the G.I. Joe movie from 1987, aka the only G.I. Joe movie, if you ask me.
Well, the live action ones didn't do anything for you.
The live action movies should never have existed. Although the animated miniseries that they did, not bad. They remembered that the people who were fans of G.I. Joe in the 80s were now heading towards their 30s, and they scaled appropriately. It worked. It worked quite nicely. But I also love, comparisons between older and newer versions of Hasbro properties. Because if you look at how Transformers from 1984 was, and then compare to all of the other versions that had come out, like Beast Wars, Robots in Disguise, Armada, which I actually really enjoyed, and then all of the ridiculous reboots that they had done of all of those series, it makes for some interesting conversation. And then you start getting real obscure with somebody touches on an allusion to the Cops TV show from 1987, not the one where you see white dudes who can't find a shirt, but a show called C.O.P.S. and their tagline was fighting crime in a future time. Everybody was all freaking bionic because it was the friggin' 80s.
Yeah, if it wasn't bionic, it was steampunk.
Oh, yes. Stuff like that got my attention, and they have sent me down enough rabbit holes to keep Alice in Wonderland indefinitely. Stuff from back when animation was literally an at face value medium always got me thinking, because now you get stories that have a lot more depth. They have behind the scenes kinds of things where you got to look at the background and see what's going on. And there's nothing wrong with that. I enjoy that hell out of it. It's great. But sometimes you just want to stare at something and have it be silly. Now, to those of you who are the uninitiated, which, let's be honest, if you're listening to this podcast, you are very lost, you poor thing.
But welcome. This rabbit hole goes on and on and on, we promise.
Oh, absolutely. Now, these kind of things to most other people would sound like the same stuff every other nerd talks about, but I have scarcely found another person who remembers that Alf had not only one, but 2 spin-off animated series.
How dare you say that name? My cat's in the room.
If it makes you feel any better, all of the people that were on that show hated being on that show.
Yeah, just like Harry and the Hendersons.
Yes. See, once again, obscure. Yes, get me started and I will ramble on about CBS versus ABC versus NBC on the average Saturday morning and how big of a difference in audience they could draw with the same kind of stuff. I did not adopt the geek culture. I was born in it. I tried. It did not work, but I tried.
My Saturday mornings was Looney Tunes, then Saved by the Bell, and then we had to turn the TV off because it was noon and we had to go outside and play.
You say go outside and play like it's a bad thing.
Well, no, it wasn't bad. It wasn't necessarily a bad thing, but we would have preferred to stay inside and watch TV. So I'm a little late to some trends, like 30 plus years late to some trends. But I do enjoy some things. Like I didn't know the Popples had a cartoon.
Not only did they have a cartoon, they actually got another one. It was very short-lived, but it came out in the early 2010s.
Okay, I would definitely not have known that. I was
once again obscure.
Yeah, I was in college in the early 2010s. I had a couple other things on my mind.
I was absolutely one of those people who got up early as hell on Saturday morning to catch everything they possibly could.
I do remember that we used to argue over who got to either watch Rainbow Bright or Superman and Friends because they both came on at the same time on different channels.
Yes.
Usually Spider-Man won. It was the better choice. We all hated the Smurfs, so that was never an issue.
I had mixed feelings about the Smurfs, but I understand. My God.
Never a thing.
There were so many weird offshoot series as well that most people don't remember that were just fucking wonderful for what they were, but because of when they were on. Like there was a show called Widget the World Watcher. It was such a good show. It was well animated. It was well researched. They actually did have a lesson going on, but it wasn't like the beat you over the head with a lesson kind of story. It was an alien who came to Earth. His whole job was to watch over what was going on Earth. And he made friends with a couple of kids. It's your basic mid 80s TV show.
Sure.
But the fact of the matter was that in comparison to some of the other stuff that was out there, it was actually well thought out because this was a show that talked about ecology well before making animated series that talked about anything other than what was happening right in front of the characters. They were doing this for years before Captain Planet ever existed.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
So you can't sleep on stuff like that. These were shows that were on at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. Most people did not see them when they were kids because they were like, fuck this, it's Saturday. I went to school all week.
Exactly.
Basically it.
Yeah, I'm in this picture and I don't like it.
Are you feeling attacked?
Just a scoochie.
Oh, Lord. Well, with that there, let's just assuage you a little bit. Because we have often discussed your love of costume dramas, both on and off camera. Which one was it that got you started? What sparked your interest?
I would say it actually wasn't the dramas that was the start. I am a historian at heart. I have been a historian since I was 12 years old.
And a wage slave since you were how old?
Well, if you're honest, 7, because I was working as an extra with my mother on movie sets. So
ain't nothing wrong with that.
But yeah, and when actually the first movie that I was in was a Western. It was Lucky Luke, as a matter of fact, and we were the townsfolks. So so yeah, it was an Italian production. Don't worry about it. No one's gonna be able to find it. It's very obscure and you probably won't see us, but don't worry about it. You want to find my mother? She was in Young Guns in the background with my dad. That's really, if you really want to find people, that's where you need to look. But yeah.
You know I'm doing that now.
Oh, I wish you luck. But yeah, no, for me, it was the research and the reading of the books and the searching the history and reading the history that got me interested in clothes that people were wearing. But then I started thinking about, well, the reason that you wear certain types of clothes is because of the type of society you were in. So then I start studying people's societies and their other material culture. And then that led me to the literature of the time. So then from there, after I'd read some of the books written by people who were living at that time, my next step was then the movies. It sounds like a very roundabout way to go to that, but the movies was actually the end point for me, not the beginning. Because
you have to do things the hard way.
Probably yes. For the same reason that I cannot write in hiragana to save my life, but I could recognize kanji on sight. I have to do everything complicated first. So, I started reading books about the British royal family, and that got me narrowing it down into certain aspects of that, because I would see the paintings and it's like, well, that outfit's pretty cool. What else were people wearing? Or, that particular person's quite good looking. What do I need to know about that family? And, that during I was studying the Stuarts and I came across the Duke of Marlborough and his wife, and he was very pretty. So then that sent me down a rabbit hole looking at, various peoples and the clothes that they were wearing. And there were no books. So I backed out of that rabbit hole and I moved on. And then I discovered the Georgians and I went down that rabbit hole because I love American history. And, then that set me back a little bit. And I was like, oh, okay, well, this is pretty interesting. Well, what happened after that? Oh, well, we have first presidents and blah, blah, blah. And a War of 1812. Oh, 1812, that's interesting. Let's just stop there for it. Oh, those clothes look nice. Well, why were they dressing like that? Then you start going back a little bit. Oh, people were going to, the continent and seeing Greek statues. And they were like, hey, that's a pretty cool thing. Also, it costs a lot of money to make these huge clothes with, dresses with panniers that are, 5 feet wide. You can't go through a doorway. Let's make everything narrow again. So they did, because everybody wanted to look like a Greek pillar or statue. And I was like, well, that's interesting. And then that led me to Jane Austen. And then I started reading Jane Austen books. And then after I got through those books, and then I was like, well, these are great books. I wonder if there's movies. And then I discovered there were loads of movies. And, it just kind of took me down that kind of weird rabbit hole. That's the way I do research. So by the time I get to the movies, I've eaten the trifle, but I've eaten it upside down.
Gotcha.
I start with the crust and work up to the top,
Oh, man.
But by the time I get to, the top and the cherry and the whipped cream and all the fun bits, I already have a pretty solid foundation of the history and the architecture and the reasons what the thought processes were behind the things that people were doing or wearing or saying. And so when I'm watching it, it's like, oh, that's why they did that. Or, oh, they missed that. That was or, oh, that, I don't know. I'm so surprised they put that in. Modern audiences wouldn't notice that, So for me, it just becomes a way to see the history that I've already been reading in a more dynamic way. So
that was quite interesting to hear. Now, I want to ask you a question to do 2 things. One, I want to, put this whole thing in a perspective and date here. I also want you to blow the minds of any of our younger readers. Okay. Readers, listen to me. Our younger listeners. Yes, this once again is how old we are. How much of this research was done before Wikipedia?
100% of it.
And that is the sound of your head exploding.
No, libraries were definitely a thing. I definitely went to libraries. I loved the library. Every town we moved into, my mom would take us to work with her and she'd be like, oh yeah, these are my kids. You may see them periodically. And everyone's like, oh, you guys are so tall and you're so nice and you're so polite. And we're like, yeah, great. Where's the library? And they'd be like, oh, okay, well, it's over there. You just have to, okay, great, bye. And then we'd go to the library.
Ain't nothing wrong with it.
When we were packing to move here, I was actually going through my stuff and I found my first library card from when we lived in Albuquerque. And I'd written my name. I was like to 5 or 6 years old, and I'd written my name very carefully, very badly, wobbly printed, and they had given me a pen to do it, and there was a giant blob of ink at the end of my name where I'd messed up, and
oh my god, that shouldn't be adorable, but that's fucking adorable.
And I just remember sitting on the floor staring at this thing and just laughing like crazy because I was just like, wow, this was so long ago, but I remember this. But yeah, no, for me, you know, and you, and probably a good majority of our listeners, I mean, you know, our internet was a card catalog.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I wrote my first research paper in 3rd grade, and it was I used a card catalog.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I remember that was a huge part of you know the library special when we were kids, was learning how to use the card catalog, learning what the Dewey Decimal System was, finding out how books were organized by subjects rather than just by title. I enjoyed stuff like that myself. Thing is, my attention span as I got older got shorter and shorter and shorter. As much as I do enjoy reading, I'm a comic book guy. I always have been. I enjoy having the pictures and the words go together.
I have always been a reader, and just to refer back to the knitting thing, I remember once I got pretty good at knitting, I remember getting frustrated because I kept looking at my work. And then there was all these stacks of books here that I checked out from the library that I was not reading because I was knitting. And it used to frustrate me. So I literally forced myself to learn to knit without looking at it, simply by feel, so that I could read books while I was knitting.
I love it. I love it.
I now have specific projects. I knit and watch TV now. I knit and read. I can knit in the car in the dark. It doesn't matter. I have projects that when we could go to the movies, I literally had a bag that was just my bag to take to the movie theater. It had my jacket in it and my theater knitting projects.
I would see that bag and did not understand what I was looking at.
Yes, and it was something I could do in the dark. I could sit there I knew I'd be sitting static for 2 hours, and I could just sit there and knit and watch the movie.
Oh, man.
I literally made myself learn how to knit by feels just so I could read books.
If it makes you feel better, you aren't the only one that could do stuff like that by feel.
Yeah.
From the sheer amount of time I spent doing wire work, I was able to put an end on a coax cable in pitch darkness.
Nice.
I was so proud of myself when I absolutely had to do so, because on the side of a house at 9:30 at night, behind a giant friggin' bush.
Oh no.
I had to make sure this person's network was going to be able to work properly. So I took a deep breath and I went to town, and then I checked the signal and it was perfect.
First try.
I immediately flipped off all of those wires and screw you, dude! I am badass!
Did you just see that? I am squirting machismo out of my nipples. I am a monster truck that walks like a man.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Oh, man. This is great.
See, some days you just need those kind of wins.
Yep.
Well, if we want to circle back to costume dramas, one of my favorite things ever, when I first watched Sense and Sensibility, they come out of the house, the family's mourning, the father's just died, everyone's sad, you get to see a nice, beautiful shot of their house, and I was like, oh, wow, that's a great house. 5 or 6 years later, I'm sitting down watching Kingsman, and they come out of the school. Eggsy comes out of the Kingsman Academy, and I was like, wait a minute, why does that building look familiar? I went back to Sense and Sensibility, and I pulled it up, and I did a side by side, and I was like, yes, they really do only have 3 sets, because that's the exact same building.
That is wonderful. I go through a similar thing when it comes to animation, because as much as I wish I could say that, cartoons are infinite within themselves, the sad reality is that the majority of the animated characters that we grew up with are probably voiced by about 25 people.
Probably, yes.
And the fact
most of them probably Matt LeBlanc.
Matt LeBlanc was never a voice actor. I think you're thinking of Mel Blanc.
Yeah, thank you, Mel Blanc. Yeah, thank you. Sorry. Words. I know that.
See, now I don't feel so bad. But yes, if you listen hard enough, you will hear the same people in so many different shows. Perfect example is Tom Kenny. It is easier to list the shows he wasn't in. Now, of course, most people, when they hear the name Tom Kenny, the first thing that comes to mind is SpongeBob.
Okay.
Of course, because that was his big breakout role. But he was in so many hot damn shows in the 80s and 90s. All you have to do is just sit and listen for long enough, and you will hear Tom Kenny. You get the same thing with Christine Cavanaugh, may she rest in peace. You get the same thing with Mel Blanc. You also get the same thing with what is it? Jim Cummings. Jim Cummings was Disney's version of Mel Blanc. Yes. Almost every one of their animated characters from, I'd say, the early 80s till about the late 90s, early 2000s, Jim Cummings was most of them.
Yeah.
Like, this motherfucker was doing whole shows by himself, it felt like. You start realizing this as you get older because you start recognizing, certain characters' voices. The one that got me the most, and it still makes me laugh now that I know this, my littlest boy started playing Spyro. Okay. He loves Spyro the Dragon at this point. He loves these games. And when I heard Spyro's voice, I was like, why do I know this voice? Why do I know this voice? So I go back and I start, reading and trying to find out. In the PlayStation version of Spyro the Dragon, the voice actor was Carlos Alazraqui, who I absolutely love because he's the voice of Beast Boy from Teen Titans.
Okay.
Fucking love this guy. He was in so much shit, though. He was on Freakazoid. He was in a bunch of the WB animated shows like Animaniacs, and he was in Tiny Toon Adventures and things of that nature.
Wow.
He did a lot of fucking voice acting. So to hear his voice come out of Spyro's face made me laugh. And my son was just confused as hell as to why Daddy was so happy.
Yeah, I bet he was.
Mm-hmm.
I've had that happen to me watching anime too, where you'll be watching something like you're super deep into it, and those voices become that character, and then you hear them in some other anime, and it throws you out of it completely. Like you've just been in a car accident and ejected through the windscreen.
Mm-hmm. Another reason why I tend not to watch anime in English anymore, because that fucked me up pretty bad. Yes. Back in the day when most people only recognized 3 anime series. Scott McNeil, who is hands down one of my favorite voice actors for anime series. He was the voice of Piccolo the Great Namek in Dragon Ball. I absolutely loved him. I loved his voice because he sounded menacing as hell. He sounded evil. That, to me, worked so well. Then Gundam Wing comes out, and I hear his voice come out of Duo Maxwell. And I said, you just became my favorite character. And then it took a turn for the worse. Not so much that it was a bad character, but because the show it was in wasn't that great.
Yeah.
When I heard Scott McNeil's wonderful voice coming out of Wolverine and X-Men Evolution, I was hurting. I was hurting so bad because we grew up with the friggin' X-Men from the 90s.
Yes, the good X-Men.
Yes. When I watched Evolution, I said, what the hell am I looking at here? So to hear Scott McNeil, whose voice I absolutely adore, coming out of a version of Wolverine that should not exist, I was not happy.
Yeah. Yeah, that definitely falls under I'm about to mess up this man's whole career.
No, yes, the ability to recognize something like that to that depth, I have to give respect for.
Yeah, because I definitely couldn't do it.
We were literally just talking about how you do exactly that. You're like, wait a minute, I've seen that place before. Just snatching information out of the ether and saying, I must educate you right now. Please hold my beer.
Well, since you've been doing the podcast with me, have you actually put out any new episodes for At Home with the Geek?
Since I've been doing the podcast with you, I've put out several new things, but I haven't done things consistently, which I'm kind of upset with myself about. However, I have a couple of things that I am working on right now, one of which I am very proud of. I just recently got my hands on a special edition Switch, and I did an unboxing for it. I haven't done an unboxing in probably about a year, and I am so proud of this thing. That hopefully will be going up later on this week, and I hope that people do enjoy it. I also have a script that I had been working on for a long time that actually I was going to put out like 2 months ago, but it is appropriate as hell to be put out during Black History Month.
Okay.
So I figure, why the hell not?
Absolutely. All right. Well, that's good. At least one of us is doing something useful. So with most cons going virtual, do you think you'll still be able to do some of the stuff that you were doing, or are you just going to like do roundups for virtual cons and stuff like that?
As much as I shouldn't say what I'm about to say, I am not a fan of the concept of a virtual convention.
Oh, well, me neither, to be honest.
On the one hand, I do get it, and it does actually help to keep something going when it comes to the fandom, when it gives a person who is, for example, somebody who spent months setting up a panel to find out that the convention that they were going to go and present at was canceled because of extenuating circumstances, we'll call them, because if I say anything else, I am probably going to rage quit. That I can understand because they're still able to get that information out. They're still able to give what they were going to present, that they spent all this time to present, to people who would be interested in it. However, those kinds of things are fine, but it defeats the purpose in my mind of what a convention really is. A convention is something that allows a large number of people who more often than not would be on the outskirts of society to have a place where they're a part of the masses.
Yeah.
That in and of itself feels so much better.
Yes.
When I went to Otakon for the first time in 2003, I literally said, these are my people.
Yes. Yeah, there's nothing that quite beats the sensation of going to your room, checking in a hotel dressed as a normal human being, going up to your room, changing into your day one cosplay, or, some variant of, or, putting on your cat ears or your tail or whatever weird thing that you brought with you that's just fun to be at the hotel in.
Mm-hmm.
Walking out of the hotel room and getting in the elevator with several serious businessmen and a couple of old age pensioners who have no idea what the hell is going on. And then it stops at the next floor and more weirdly dressed people get on. And then it goes down another floor and more weirdly dressed people get on. And you can smell the fear filling the car as it finally lands in the lobby. There's nothing quite like it.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. If you are enjoying listening to us as we reminisce about the ridiculous mess that we have done for so many years, we have plenty more episodes. So wherever it is that you find your podcast, you'll be able to find us. Our personal recommendations are Stitcher as well as Google Podcasts. If you would like to, send us an email, or if you'd like to send us a post on Facebook or tweet at us on Twitter, we have options for that as well. Twitter.com/Little Old People Podcast, Facebook.com/Little Old People Podcast. And if you'd like to send us an email, you can send us an email at littleoldpeoplepodcast@gmail.com, because we'd like to hear what you think about the ridiculous mess that comes out of our faces.
Yes.
And we would love more than anything to share with you how much we appreciate it all. As a matter of fact, another way that we do that is on our Discord, which you will be able to find at our link tree, which is linktr.ee/Little Old People Podcast. That also has all of our information for all of our social media. So if this is something you enjoy, please make a visit there, and we will absolutely welcome you in as one of our own, because that's what nerds do.
One of us. One of us. And Mark can be found on his YouTube channel at Home with a Geek.
YouTube.com/@HomeWithAGeek. You are absolutely welcome there, and I am looking forward to y'all staying geek and proud with me.
Absolutely. So I've been ChibiMethos. He's been the little black dude, and we'll see you on our next episode.
Follow the yellow brick road. Follow the yellow brick road. Follow the yellow brick road. Follow the yellow brick road.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Oh, I have so much fun doing this.
I know, me too.
We are silly people, yes.
Oh, we are too old for this shit. You know what? I'm just going to keep doing it forever. All right.
Yeah, that sounds about right, yeah.